like you can acknowledge the fact that you might feel bad that you're just getting into it. I'm not saying like diminish that, but it's not useful. So the fact is that you're here now, and that's what matters. That's seriously all that matters, is that you're here now. And part of that comes into the shaming and the blaming and the guilt. So there's no, we don't have any space for the shaming and the blaming and the guilt. Okay, so you're here now. The people that are further along, if some of this talk feels like, oh, I've been here, done that, what I want you to use for that lens is more of the, how can I facilitate something like this? Maybe not exactly like this, but like with 5 friends, with 10 friends, or maybe instead of analyzing the content, analyze something else about the interactions or the facilitation. I'm just challenging you, because part of what comes out of today's, whatever you want to call this call around messy conversations, is to learn how to take messy conversations into the world with your people and with your colleagues, etc. So wherever you're at, just know that you being here, if you're further along, engaging with this conversation and modeling conversations with people who are just starting out and showing how we can bring humility and like welcome. We're just welcoming all of the people. Like that's what we're doing. So before we start, I'm gonna have us do a quick grounding. I know that when I get anxious about talking about things that I'm uncomfortable with, it's really important for me to put my feet on the ground. So I'm just gonna welcome you all to feel your body actually in your chair. And we're gonna just take a deep breath. And exhale, like try and take the deepest breath of your whole day. And then notice how you feel. Like right now, I feel like my hands are a little sweaty-ish, or they're like moist. So like really get into your body. And then thank your body for being here today. Okay, thank you. All right, my name is Sara Alvarado. This is 90 minutes, and I am now going to share my screen, which you're really excited about. All right, know how to share my screen. Oh, but I don't know how to make it okay. Well, it doesn't really matter. Oh, yes, it does. How do I do that thing again? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing it for a second and see if I can figure it out.
Open it up to where it's ready to present before you share your screen, then share your screen.
I know, but now I lost how I presented. But that's okay. I will figure it out. So what I'm doing is I'm just telling you quickly what we're doing today, and that is like the agenda so that you feel like you know kind of what's going on. We're gonna have a little bit of content. We're gonna have a little bit of you practicing a conversation with someone else. We're gonna have time for questions, and we're gonna have some more content. So if at any point, like I have about 3 solid chunks of content that I wanna deliver, but I also just wanna acknowledge that agendas in general are super rigid, and there's a lot of white supremacy culture in how meetings should be run and what is on the agenda and what we need to get accomplished. So in my learning, I'm trying to unravel that. And so if something doesn't happen today that was on my agenda, I'm just gonna flow with it, because what's most important is that y'all bring yourself to this and that we can work through whatever we need to work through. So which is why I really like the word messy, because it is the reality of it. I'm also going to teach 5 learning pillars and a way to understand the process. So the process being the racial justice process. A lot of you don't know me. Okay, real quick, I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I am identify as a white woman, she, hers, and cisgender. I am married to a Mexican man, and we have 2 biracial, bilingual, bicultural boys. I would say that I come from an educated and middle-class family, very Midwestern. So there's a Midwestern niceness, etc. I also come from a real estate background. So there's a lot of business and whiteness and wealth generation that is within our family in terms of like how we think. And my journey started in 2013. And I've been doing this work since 2013. I've been doing it professionally. I've been doing it personally. I acknowledge the fact that I am a white woman and that I do not understand what it's like to have brown skin or to be a Black person or to have that level of oppression that happens. So I do not teach anti-racism from that perspective. Where my sweet spot is, if you will, is understanding what it's like to go from being super freaking naive and like clueless, because our culture and our socialization does not teach us about any of this. Like literally did not understand what it was like that I was a white person, like as a racial being. I had studied other, like I knew all about the Latino community and like I understood other, but I hadn't looked at myself as a white person until 2013. And so I can help people who are going through that process of learning identity and whiteness and what that means and how to unravel it in that way. So that's what I have to say about that. Before I get into the first chunk of content, I just want to check in with everyone in the chat, and because I'm wondering how you're all feeling about this call. Like coming into this call, what emotion either do you have currently or did you have coming into this? Which means I am going to find my chat again because I want to know.
And really quickly, Sarah, there's a question that I think I may have answered incorrectly, but the question was this call being recorded?
I am recording it, but I don't know how to access the recordings. And if I do at some point access it, I would never share the conversations that you all have. So I would maybe take a chunk of my content out, but I am not sharing the conversations that you all have. This is a place that you should not have to worry about being recorded.
Thanks, Sarah.
Grounded, curious, anxious, nervous. Everyone's grounded now because we did grounding. I'm just kidding. Excited. Okay. A lot of curiosity. I am wondering what that curiosity is about, but I'm just going to jump into it and then you all can tell me later. Nervous about saying the wrong thing. Yeah, a lot of blood guilt. Okay. Thank you all for being open and sharing that. So this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing from a lot of white women. Well, before we even talk about that, what the unique position about being a white woman is that we are the oppressed and the oppressor. So we know as women in the patriarchy what it's like to be oppressed. We have experienced oppression. We experience oppression on a regular basis. It's part of the systems, it's part of how we're raised, it's in entertainment, it's in everything. So we know how painful it is to not get a promotion, to be looked at differently, to be treated differently, to be talked at differently, to be physically assaulted, sexually assaulted. And we see our friends go through it, we watch our mothers go through it, we watch our daughters go through it. And a lot of it goes unhealed, and there's a lot of trauma in it. And for me, it's easy to talk about that. It's easy for me to fight the patriarchy and smash it and have woman power and just yes. And then when I acknowledge the fact that I'm white, and that means that I am an oppressor, I shrink because I know what it's like to experience the pain of that oppression. And now I'm all of a sudden facing the fact that I create that for a whole group of people. And I don't want to acknowledge that because it's horrible. It feels horrible. And I really don't know how I do it. And so that's when all of these things come up of, for me at least, when I started to go through this process, it was like, but I'm raising my kids. I married a man who's brown. Like clearly, I love everyone, right? And I'm not like scared to love people who are of different color. We're just working. We're doing our thing. I don't work in the education system. I don't work in the criminal justice system. I'm like, oh, how am I actually contributing to racism? Like it's probably out there, but it's not in here. It's not in my house. I love everybody. So I was raised by hippies. And clearly my mom is Jewish, my dad was Catholic. So like they were all about the love. But what they didn't teach me is that even though we're all the same, we're not all treated the same. I didn't get that. I wasn't taught to look for it. And I certainly wasn't taught to disrupt it or to learn ways to interrupt it. And we come by it honestly because if you think about it, the system doesn't want us to know. The system doesn't want us to see it. And that is one of the ways where when we start to get hard on ourselves, it's like, okay. It's not like I was dumb. It's like literally on purpose that I'm not supposed to see any of this. And we didn't have conversations about it. I think we're going to start, I know I've started having conversations with my kids, but when I was growing up, I didn't have any conversations with, my parents didn't talk to me about it. It was not a and then in business, like, here's what you don't talk about. And there's a whole list of, what is it? Religion, politics, race, for sure. Don't talk about that. So if we're taught not to talk about it, then clearly we don't know how, we don't have models for it and we haven't practiced it. So like, how do we expect ourselves or each other to just be like, oh, okay, we need to have conversations about race more often because these conversations can create change, but we don't know how. And it's I don't know about you, but I don't have like a ton of time in my life to go to school again and relearn everything again. And that's not even an option. So what you're doing now is you're looking for ways, like, where can I find what I need? And how can I start to be better? Because I'm starting to see, I'm just making up things for you, but like, this is what I've been hearing from people. I'm starting to see that how I'm doing it isn't okay. And there is no actual model, except there's a bunch of things all over the place. So what you're going to learn to do is you're going to learn who you are, like really, what you want, how you want to be within your community as an activist, and to be able to call yourself an activist or whoever it is, and then to create your own process for getting better and to not throw yourself under the bus all the time for not being where you want to be, because that is not helpful. It's not helpful. I'm just going to pause for a second and see if I can figure out how to show you my slideshow again. So you can see my beautiful slideshow because I made one. I'm curious to know if any of that resonated about you growing up as a woman in the patriarchy and like your voice. Like, so what kind of harmful messages did you get growing up that might contribute to the fact that you're not speaking up now? If you're not speaking up, some people are speaking up, but if sometimes it's hard to speak up, what are some of the harmful messages? Throw them in the chat for me if you want. You can't see the chat yet. Yeah, need to be polite. Oh my gosh, polite. It's going so fast. Don't be the squeaky wheel. Yes, keep quiet, don't talk about it. So do you all see everyone saying the same things? Stop being emotional. Oh my gosh. Yes. And avoid conflict. Okay. So if basically you're taught to do all of the opposite of what you're being asked to do now, like, is it possible to give yourself a little bit of a break? And then it is also possible to be like, dude, this is nothing compared to the discomfort. And I'm not doing this to like diminish your feelings. Like, I want to create space for your feelings, but I also want you to compartmentalize when is it effective and when is it not effective for you to be up in your feelings? And I say that in a way that sounds like you're up in your feelings, like it's bad. No, I love being up in the feelings, because I think like we're not allowed to do that. And so like we're trying to create space for feelings and not diminish them. And at the same time, like, okay, I'm gonna call my friend right now because I'm like freaking out because I'm sure I said the wrong thing. But like that's my space for my friend. And I don't need the whole world or a group of people I don't need that to take up space. So when people talk about white women take up too much space, it feels like it's incongruent. It's not aligned, because we were raised not to take up space. We then learn to take up space because we're like, wait, but I matter. Like, right? Don't I matter? Isn't the whole world telling me I should stand in my power and like demand a raise? But yet as an oppressor, I'm now told to sit down and shut up again. So like, if you hear those two different messages, it's really easy to freeze. And so what I'm asking you to do is to use your critical thinking brain. So let's just all write down the word critical thinking, because did you write it down, Casey? Oh, writing down critical thinking, because like this is where it is, this is where it's really important for us to notice where there is compounded trauma, notice where things are coming from, and then assess what is right for me and what is wrong for me, and what works for me and what doesn't. I don't actually like right and wrong, but like what is working for me and what doesn't work for me. So yes, when we're told to sit down and shut up and just listen, and then we're told to speak up, it's easy for us to be like, everyone's telling us what to do. Everyone's telling me what to do, and I don't know what to do. That's when we go inside and we're like, wait, what am I committing to? What is my intention? My intention and what I'm committing to is to be a better racial justice advocate. Whatever you want to call yourself, like actually maybe we should come up with what you want to call yourself. Like, I like the word activist. That might be too strong for people. I also like the word rebel. I like to challenge the status quo. So who you want to be is really important, but sometimes people just want to be better. So like if you just want to be a little bit better than you were last week, then maybe it's, I want to be a better Sara. So that when the mixed messages are coming at you, you can be like, wait, where do I stand here? So obviously there are times when I need to listen more, and there are times I need to speak out more, and I'm a smart ass cookie and I can figure out when those times are. So it's not that I'm doing it wrong. I think for me, I worry that I'm going to get in trouble, that I'm going to do it wrong. Like, like, you know, when the phone rings and it's like a client that's like, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but I'm like, oh shit, am I in trouble? Or I get an email and I'm like, oh my God, that is, maybe it's because I was in trouble a lot, but like, that is like one of my first go-tos. So when I notice that it's like, I'm a grown ass woman, I am not in trouble, I'm doing the best I can. And if I made a mistake, I know how to repair it. And if I don't know how to repair it, I can find out. I can learn how to find out, because we know how to do hard things. So part of this is saying, I know it's hard to be in the racial justice world, and it's way easier to step out of it, except though, is it really? I'm actually gonna take that back. It is not easier to step out, because once you see how horrific it is, which obviously I think everyone has since they're here, you can't imagine closing your eyes to it again. So acknowledging that we could step out because of our whiteness, I think is, what does it mean to be in a racial justice world? Okay, I'm gonna stop and answer that question. And Darcy, if there are any other questions that I should answer, let me know. Being in a racial justice world, in my opinion, means that you're committed to understanding racism as it works. So once you understand it, then there is a desire for justice. So and there's probably different words, right? But if you're here because you want to have a messy conversation about race, then I'm guessing it's because you understand that we're missing conversations. And racial justice is where we take the negative impacts of racism and we put them into practice for advocating to either get rid of or change Like, how do we create change? And so as a white person, I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm white. Well, that's because I'm part of the problem. So being white actually is where we can change things. Because if we can see where racism lives inside of us and acknowledge that, how can we not be racist if we are raised and socialized to be racist? Like, the system is racist. There are ways that the system is set up for white men to succeed. Like, that is how, like, the system of the country was set up, was for white men to succeed. And so we fought that, right? Like, we fought for women's rights. There's fighting against that white man succeeding thing, but the whiteness is in everything. So it's in education, it's in real estate, it's in the government, it's in our schools. And because it's everywhere, it's kind of like, gets said a lot, but it's like when you're a fish in the water, you don't know you're in water until you're taken out of the water. And so we just, it's in the music, it's in the movies we watch, it's the biases. I mean, like, I don't know anyone that can say that they've never actually thought a bad thought based on the way someone looked. Like, there are, right? Like, when you see a small, and so people, if you were saying that there's no such thing as biases, or that you don't have biases, then this isn't actually probably the right conversation, because I need everyone to know that everyone has biases, and there's tons of bias training, and that might be a good place to start. But you're not a bad person because you have biases. You're a human. Like, that's just it. You're a human. So then our job is, once we notice the biases and how they're impacting, it's on us to reframe them. Like, just like how we were raised in certain ways to, like, all of the things you all listed, like, you have to be perfect, you have to, like, we're in the process of unlearning all of that. Can everyone agree that we're unraveling and unlearning patriarchal ways? Like, as women, like, isn't that one of the things that we're doing on a regular basis? I would like to see some nodding heads. Yes. So if we understand that we're doing that actively, then doesn't it make sense for us, and wouldn't it be cool if men were actively doing that too? Like, it's possible for men to see how sexist the world is. And there are some men that actually do it. Like, they're like, oh, wow, that was really sexist. Like, so men can see how sexist the world is, and they can also unravel their own stuff inside. Like, they can say, oh yeah, I can't believe I thought that. Or, you're right, like, that's possible. So it's just kind of flipping that switch and being like, as white people, can we start to see how racist the world is and where it's inside of me, so that I can learn to untangle it, dismantle it, whatever words, burn it up, like, whatever words you want to use, like, yuck, I don't want it. And it's not our fault. Like, we can't, like, we can't blame ourselves for how we've been. We can only commit to getting better.
Sarah, there was one other comment in the chat box a little while ago that I would love to hear you speak to. And that is, when you were talking about how we were socialized, how we were raised. And one of the participants put in there, they were raised that if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. So you want to talk for a moment about perfectionism, especially in this work?
Yeah. I really like being perfect. I really like being the best student. Like, not that I was a good student growing up, but like, I love doing things really well. And half the time it's because I want someone to be proud of me. It's like, not even for my own self. It's because I want praise or validation. So I'm just going to show you my real vulnerable stuff, because like, that's who I am. And it does not serve me to try and be perfect, because perfection is bullshit. Like, I forgot to say in the very beginning that if I do swear, and if you have small children around, take care of the airwaves however you want, because I'm not gonna not swear. Okay, thank you very much for that. So perfection obviously gets in the way, because if we feel like we can't say anything, then we shouldn't say anything if we don't know that we're gonna say it perfectly. So we have to just not say anything, or wait until we can say it perfectly. Like, as logical thinkers, like, when we look at how old are kids when they learn to tie their shoes? Like 5 years old. If we're like, now tie your shoes, and they don't do it perfectly, aren't we like, oh, good try? Like, we're never like, how is it possible that you can't tie your shoe perfectly? So how is it that we're expecting ourselves to enter into conversations about race and hope that we don't mess up? Like, why would we hope to not mess up? I can tell you why. Because we don't want to cause harm. Like, we already know that we cause harm, and we don't want to cause more harm. So we're like, okay, well, I'd rather not cause harm, so I will be quiet. But then you hear the message of your silence is actually louder, and you're causing more harm with your silence. So then you're like, shit. So really all I'm asking you to do is say, I am gonna fuck something up, and I'm not gonna die, and that's how I'm gonna get better. Like, you don't have to say fuck it up. You can say mess it up. Like, you can say something else. But you're gonna mess something up. So it's not about not causing harm. It's about causing less harm. Like, the goal is to cause less harm. And if you want to practice being in conversations with people, like, first of all, if you're just learning how to have conversations with your family and friends, find people that you're not necessarily gonna cause harm with, right? Like, I would encourage everyone here to try and find an accountability partner of some sort, whether in this group or somewhere else, where when you are wanting to practice having a conversation about race or an argument that you're seeing, that's where we want Darcy with perfectionism. And did I go off topic too much? Do you want? I mean, I think I covered that pretty well.
That's exactly where I was hoping that you would go. Is that this is not perfect work?
Yeah, this is not perfect work. And it's okay. And it's okay to want perfection too. Like, you know, of course you want it to be perfect. And then when you do feel like you've had a really good conversation one day, you can like brag about it. But I just want you to celebrate your mistakes too. Okay, just like, I have made mistakes, and when I make a mistake, I get like super flushed. Like, it's really obvious that I've like really feel horrible about something. And if you don't try, you don't succeed. And when you try things that are hard, you fall down. Like, so we're gonna fall down. All right, let's play. We're gonna jump right now into the conversation part, and then we're gonna put you in breakout rooms. But before you go into the breakout room, I want you to know what the conversation guidelines are for that. So, oh. Can you see my sad face? It's because it's not coming to the front.
Do you have multiple screens?
Like 90. Is that a problem?
No, I meant like physical, like more than one screen. Because then you have to choose which screen you're sharing.
I know, and then it's because it's behind, but you guys love me because I'm messy, right? So.
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Thank you. Is my screen sharing right now? No. Okay. I just don't know where it went. Oh well.
Sarah, if you want to talk to it, I can also put it in the chat box for you.
If I want to do what?
If you want to just give the instructions, I can also copy them into the chat box.
Okay. I can do that. Well, the first one is like when we're talking about how to have conversations, like it's easy, and honestly, I don't think enough of us are taught about this either in regards to like using I statements. You can tell that I'm like not giving up. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just going to skip all of this. Okay, here's how you talk. Use I statements. Don't talk for another group. Like they.
Sarah, real
Yeah.
quick, we're still seeing the screen that says what to expect. So even though you moved it, it didn't move it on our screen.
Well, I don't know how to do that then. So what now does it say? What to expect?
Yep, it still says the what to expect.
Okay.
Unshare your screen. And then bring up on your screen
Yeah.
the slide that you want to share, and then
Okay.
share the screen.
Okay.
There you go. We see it.
Okay. Be brief, so don't talk a lot. Resist the desire to interrupt. Be honest and be willing to be vulnerable. So I want you to notice when you're in a conversation with somebody, like when you're talking, when you start to close up, and then challenge yourself to be vulnerable. And to just, so pausing can be helpful. That's the next one. When it starts to get like a lot of anxiety, just take a pause. Try and talk a little slower. Try not to take comments personally. Listen with curiosity and suspend judgment. A lot of times you can say, what do you mean by that? So if somebody says something where you're like you can literally feel it like landing on you negatively, that's when you suspend judgment and say, what do you mean by that? Watch for detours, stay on topic. This happens so much when we're talking about race and topics that like we might be talking about one thing, racism in general, and then it will go off on a completely different topic. Well, this and this and this. So how do you bring people back and stay on topic? And then the last one is expect and accept unfinished business. So we as humans do not like to do this. We want to fix the problem. We want it to be fixed quickly. And we think we know how to fix it. So these are all red flags. So when we can just have a conversation and have it be like, we're not going to figure this out today. Like it would be cool if we could, but we're not. So it's actually the goal to not try and figure it out. A lot of people are like, oh, we solved all the world's problems today. Like, let's not try and do that. Let's actually just try and explore conversations, explore other people's experiences. So that's what that means. Now I'm going to stop sharing again. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to be in a breakout room of 3 people. So there are going to be 3 people in your breakout room. And Darcy's going to write these topics into the chat. So for the first 5 minutes, you're going to talk about an issue. And there are 3 issues. You're going to pick one issue right now before you go in. Police brutality, wealth gap, or negative biases. So write down which topic you would talk about if you are the one that's going to choose the topic. And
What was the third one?
the negative biases. Biases that create negative impacts, anything like that.
And they are in the chat box now, Sarah.
Okay, so police brutality, wealth gap, negative biases. And the person who has the most letters in their name out of the 3 of you, that person is going to pick the first topic. That's how that is going to happen fast. And then at 5 minutes, Darcy's going to put a little thing at the top of the screen and it's going to say switch. And then you're going to switch topics. And now you're going to talk about an argument. So there's 3 arguments that you can choose from. The All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter argument. You can have an argument about white privilege. And or you can have an argument about where white people fit into this fight, which is the fight for racial justice. And the second round of that 5 minutes is the person with the fewest letters in their first name gets to pick the second topic. And you're going to discuss that for 5 minutes. And when you're having these, remember that the person that you're talking to is practicing too. So they're just as worried about what they're going to say. So like we're trying to help you move beyond that so that you can just practice it. Does anyone have questions before we jump in? Like why we're doing this?
Sarah, can I offer one suggestion that was sent in the chat? And that is, it's really helpful when you get into your chat room, your breakout rooms, if you'll turn your video on. It's very different to have a conversation with a face that you can see than a blank screen.
Okay.
Sarah, quick question about the name and how we choose the names. Since we're just seeing most people's first names, can we just use first names?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to have to worry about spelling and all that.
No, the most letters in your first name or the fewest letters in your first name.
Great, thank you.
Yes, for sure. Oh my gosh. We're trying to make this easy and like efficient without being too efficient. All right. If there are no more questions, jump into your breakout rooms and then we will tell you when you're pulled out.
So to join.
Yep, you're going to click join. And then there are some people who didn't. Megan, Joanna, are you the only one that didn't get into one?
Probably. I had to step out when you're giving instructions to tend to my dog, so I think I missed what I'm supposed to be doing.
I just have a question. Is Andrea, Megan, Jordan, or the other Megan? These might be people who had them on too. Oh, there you go.
Hi, sorry, my video was turned off, so I had to go into settings.
There.
Do you know if it's possible for Megan and Joanne to jump in a room?
It looks
I'm
like I'm
sorry,
being
I
invited
just
to
sent
one.
them to one. Yeah, I just sent them to a room.
Thanks, Darcy.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sorry that the presenter mode is giving you issues on your slide deck.
I know, it's so sad. Oh, I think if I, okay. I'm gonna figure it out though.
All right, I believe in you. I am not an Apple girl, so I don't have a lot of suggestions to show you on that, but.
I will get it. Other than that, we're doing okay, right?
Everything's great, yep. One participant did have to leave and had asked if you were doing this again. I just directed her to your website, Sarah, and told her to keep an eye there.
Okay. I haven't decided yet. Would you keep doing it if you were me?
I think it would be a great thing if you have the emotional availability and the capacity to do it like once a month. But I do also think that you offer opportunities for white women to work with you in different ways.
Okay. Here I found present.
Aha, there we go.
Oh, I forgot to talk about that. Okay. So I think if I just leave it there.
Yep, you should be good.
Nope, it went away. See, it says sharing as
What I wonder if each time you share it, you have to go back into the, so like exit presenter mode and then go back in. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of a pain.
Huh. So how do I just, then I want to just make it into a PDF is what I want to do.
Okay.
Download PDF. Don't know where it went. How's this?
That's good.
Can you see anything else behind it?
Nope, I can't see anything behind it. All I can see is the first page. Try scrolling through the pages to see if,
Yeah, I just realized I can't.
oh no.
Oh wait, it's this.
There you are. Now it's scrolling.
Yeah. Okay. How many minutes are we?
We have 3 minutes left.
Okay. Thanks for watching the chat for me too.
Absolutely. It's typically when we present, there's 2 or 3 of us and somebody is assigned to chat. So the chat box, whoever's not presenting at that moment monitors the chat box, because it just, for me at least, it throws me off my game if I'm trying to monitor what it says and remember what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Oh. Funny. Okay. Okay. So now where am I? Screen share. I'm not on screen share, correct?
You are not on screen share.
Okay.
Your puppy.
You're the cutest dog in the world.
Love it.
I'm actually thinking of trying to. Do you feel like I'm at a little more basic level than last time?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yep, I do.
That was my.
Now, I have pages and pages of notes from your session last week. And certainly things that I think spoke to me because of where I'm at in my work, but maybe would have not been accessible to people just beginning. All right, I'm sending the 1 minute warning.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of the things that really stood out to me was your cycle with the analysis. Hold on.
Yeah. Awareness, analysis,
Yeah.
action, and accountability.
Awareness, analysis, action, and accountability. Like that was a big thing to me.
Good.
But again, somebody who has been racially socialized never to speak about race, that's a big jump.
Jill! I can't hear you, honey. You're on mute.
I left my group. I didn't mean to. We were like in the middle. That flew by. That was not enough time. But it got the point across. It was great.
So 15 minutes next time?
I would say. We didn't even get on to the second topic. And I was so enjoying the conversation, and I literally pushed the button and accidentally left.
Well, you only had 60 seconds left, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, it's okay.
Okay.
I'll teach you a quick thing, Jill, about Zoom. And that is if you accidentally leave your breakout room, if you look at the bottom of your screen, on your taskbar, it says breakout rooms, you can rejoin it from there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's probably too late at this point, but in the future,
Yeah,
if that were to
in
happen.
the future. Thank you, Darcy.
You're welcome.
Are we all back, Darcy? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is anyone want to jump into the hot seat and talk to me about how that was for them? Casey? Where's Casey?
I'm here.
Hi, Casey.
Hi, Sarah.
How was that for you?
It was really just on a practical level, the conversation at first was a little like, what are we doing? How do we do this? Are we doing this wrong? Which was so meta because, you know, it's messy. We wanted to do the conversation of the conversation right. But once we got into it, I think the juicier part for the two of us was the second part. And when we were talking about where white people fit in. And like what we're, the silence is violence, yet we're at like sit down and listen. And I think, I mean, you already spoke to this, but I think it's that whole problem with how we're structured in the patriarchy is the binary, like choose one. But I think it was helpful what you're saying in the beginning about use your critical thinking mind. Like there are times and there are places for both.
How about Casey though, that like, what about when this happens? When I am going to choose to use my voice because I want to be better. And then I say something and then not only do I say it wrong, but I get attacked or thrown under the bus.
So what about that? What's the question? Like, how would I react?
Like, why would I ever want to speak up?
Yeah, for sure. Like 100%. I am having these offline conversations, because I can tell myself they're more powerful, and they are powerful. I know I'm making a difference. People that haven't had these conversations before are now forced to have these conversations with me, but I'm not having them. I'm not online getting on threads where people are back and forth because I don't feel confident enough to or courageous enough.
Okay, so how about the fact that being online isn't necessarily where you are at right now? So it's addressing where you're at, not shaming yourself for where you're at, and then figuring out where do you fit in. So if you're not confident to be online and engaging in conversations online, then don't do that. You can still learn, you can read how people respond and like learn, oh, that, like I read that, it was horrible, but I didn't know how to respond to it. And then someone else jumped in and responded to it. And so then you can learn. And that is a helpful tool for maybe in a year or 6 months or whatever. But to be able to have a conversation with your neighbor, with your uncle, with your, you know, with your kids, and not even with your kids because that's a different topic altogether, but with someone at work, that is really powerful, and that's where you're getting practice too. So one of, before I forget that, you also said, so one of the things about when we do get thrown under the bus, and I'm using that word, that's, you know, actually that's horrible. I don't ever want anyone to be thrown under the bus. When we are
Challenged.
in a really harsh way, really harshly challenged, that's an opportunity for us to build racial resiliency. So when when you're hearing all of this, read the book White Fragility, we're focused on, and White Fragility, I learned a lot in that book, but just notice that we see fragility as a weakness, and then we're worried that we're weak. If we can actually see the reading of the book as an opportunity to educate ourselves and then build racial resiliency, we're already getting better.
Yeah, for sure. So
when you do get challenged and it hurts, then it might take, so when I was challenged and it hurt 4 years ago, it took me like 2 weeks before I stopped waking up in the middle of the night freaking out about it, or, you know, shaming myself. Whereas last week when I was challenged, I was only up once, you know, like it wasn't, it still hurts, but it hurts less. And now I know, like, that's my like ticker of like, oh, Sarah, look, you're becoming more racially resilient.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So can I just ask one other quick thing that my partner and I were talking about is, it'd be great if you had some phrases or some follow-up questions when we hear somebody in our white worlds saying something that we know, we get that twinge, like, okay, that is not okay. What are some phrases or some questions that we can say to them to like, can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean about that? Like, so we can pause the conversation without attacking them, but pausing it so that they can reflect.
So in a situation like that, we want to assume positive intent, right? So like we don't, and there are people who would argue with that. Not everyone has positive intent, but if we assume positive intent, instead of like jumping on them about like, I can't believe you said that, to say, here's a couple, like, ouch, like literally just say ouch. And then they'll be like, what? Well, that just like that landed, that sounded a little harsh, or that felt harsh. So instead of saying that was wrong, because then you're going to push them away, perhaps, it's trying to hold space for how that impacted you instead of making them be wrong, which is coddling, right? Like I don't like to coddle, but we want to engage in effective conversations too. So if we can say something like, oh, that landed a little hard for me, like, can you like explain that a little bit, or wait, what did you say? Or can you repeat that? Now, if it's something that's really obvious, I've never done this before, but one of my friends would say, do you want a second chance to say that again? What was that? Casey, you've heard that one before, right?
Yeah, I've used it. Okay, I'm going to rewind. I'm going to rewind. Do you want to try that again?
Oh, there you go. Let's rewind. And do you want to try that again? And then if they're like, what do you mean? Well, like, yeah. I don't know. I don't have a really, but that's a good one, to allow someone the space to repeat themselves. Or I said something like, I used to use that term, or I've said that before, or I know what you mean. I'm just now that I'm learning a little bit more, like I'm uncomfortable with that. So make it be about you, and make it be about your learning process and about where you're at in the journey, and not to shame them for it. Because we come by it honestly. They learn that from their parents. They learn that from their, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that they're trying to be bad. Did you have another one, Casey?
No, I think that was it.
Thanks.
Sarah, I hope it's okay. I threw a document into the chat for everybody that they can download, and it's called Racism Interruptions. And really what it is just a set of sentence stems. And I would really encourage you not to try to memorize them all, but pick one or two that sound natural to you and put into your toolbox, so that when something is said, you have a way to respond that makes sense to you.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay. One of the things that we want to think about when we're in conversation with someone is what's the intention? So when I was practicing having conversations, because I didn't know how, I was like, all right, this week, I'm going to try and have one conversation with somebody that's uncomfortable, and I'm going to bring up a topic. Okay, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what topic to bring up. I created a 7 conversation starter. I don't remember exactly how I called it, but there's 7 conversation topics, and there's like prep work. So this topic might be on using the N word. So then there's like maybe a video, maybe an article. So you do about 10 to 20 minutes of prep work. And then there's the conversation starter questions. So Darcy, you have that in the chat too?
Yes, ma'am. I just put it in there.
Okay, cool. So you can use those or look through them. I did it in the PDF style for you. The intention sometimes is to challenge yourself. Sometimes it's actually to explore a topic. Like, I wanted to know more about why somebody was being so adamant about pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Like, you know, the class versus race conversation. So I literally got curious and I was like, tell me more. It wasn't that I was trying to get them to understand me. I wanted to understand them. And I think the more we can understand everybody, the more we can then figure out how we can present what is important to us and that they're like our values. Okay, the second point of who am I talking to and what are the power dynamics? So obviously if we're in a work situation, and this is why power dynamics are really important, is that I can't lose my job by having this conversation because I own my own business. So my space in the world is really different than somebody who maybe works for the mayor's office, right? Like where that person goes and shows up and how they get into conversations, that could lose them their job. So thinking about also with family members, like the power dynamics or family relations. So you can fight with your uncle all night, but like at the end of the day, he's still your uncle. And how effective is that? So to kind of open up to the possibility of, am I doing this to practice the conversation? Am I doing this to change a mind? Am I doing this to get into a debate? Where am I coming from? And then what tools do I have access to? Literally taking a pause is a tool, or saying something like, you know what? I'm getting really heated right now about this, and I'm not in a good place to have this conversation. It's really important to me. I really want to have this conversation, but I don't feel comfortable right now. That is a tool, because now you're not copping out of a conversation. You're actually choosing to have the conversation when you're in a better space to have it. And sometimes when you follow up with a conversation later, it's actually, it's a more effective because you're in a different place. And then there's lots of tools, like Darcy just gave you a tool. So I would make a note to fill up your toolbox. So I'm going to give you more tools, but your job is to look around at what tools work for you, because what works for me isn't going to work for you. But to ask people or to watch people in conversation, say things like, and it's not to derail it, but it might be to personalize it. Like, so one of my tools is to tell stories about when I also had a feeling like this, or I used to think that police lives matter was an argument that made sense. Like whatever it was, that's one of my tools. Okay, so the other one is, how do I end it? How do you get out of the conversation, so to speak? Because this is an important thing to think about, is because we don't want to try and fix it. So how do we say, you know what, this has been an interesting conversation, or it looks like we're not gonna agree on everything, and that's okay. So how about we just pick this up another time, or whatever it is. Try and think about that as you're practicing it. Is how do you want it to end, and then to be okay if it doesn't end the way you want it to end. I used to hang on to the let's agree to disagree until it felt horrible, because I was like, actually, I don't want to agree to disagree. So how about we just agree that I feel really strongly about this and you don't, or you feel really strongly about something else, and that's clear. But it's not okay that we disagree on this, because the fact that you disagree with whatever they're fighting, and it could be a fight about Black lives matter to me. The lives of brown and black people matter to me enough that I don't agree to disagree. And then building relationships on trust and respect matter. So that's when we go into the power dynamics too. Like, who are we talking to? You've got tools and resources. So there's also a messy conversation workbook that is in the PDF that's in your chat. And then there's 7 conversation topics and guided questions that's in your chat. I like those conversation topics and guided questions for to work with someone on, like to literally, like it started out as with your teenager, and there's a separate one for teenagers if you want that one that's on my website. But like to literally say, okay, neighbor, let's do this. We don't really know each other, but like we both have whatever. You guys can figure that out. You're smart people. But to do that, so the 10-person conversation challenge is really important. This is what I was trying to talk about later, and I got off on a tangent. So my racial justice coach, Ananda, I was kind of lamenting about like, I don't really know if it like, how do I know it really makes a difference if I'm creating space for white women? Like, well, I don't know how to, like, is it going to make a difference? And she was like, Sarah, if there are 100 people and you ask all 100 of them to try and have 10 conversations that they've never had with someone about something that's this important, that is a massive impact. And I was like, okay, yeah, because you're right. Conversations lead to actions. And the more we're doing it, the more we get determined that we want to see change happen. So you all get to choose 10 people that you're going to go into the world and have conversations with if you want to take the challenge, which I really hope you do. Someone took this, I did the same talk last Thursday night, and I got a text message from her, and she said that she created not a book club at work, but a racial justice conversation club with 6 women at work. And I think they're gonna go through the 7 conversation topics. There's also a 21-day challenge. So I post a lot of these things on my Facebook too, but there's lots of ways that you can create and to follow something, but then to take it and make it your own. And then the practice, celebrate, and acknowledge. Okay, so bringing humility to these conversations, and I just like to write this up here, the humility being the absence of ego, righteousness, arrogance, and the need for right or wrong. We can just be different, like my way, like just to get off of the right wrong, because that usually doesn't get us in any directions. So if you want more, because I can only do so much in 90 minutes, what I have, just me personally, is I'm starting a group for a maximum of 10 white women who are at the very beginning stage. It's a 6-week, and it's a 90-minute call with a very small group. And we literally are just going to go through the identity around whiteness, understanding white supremacy, and some of the basics, which I wish I would have had that, because it made me more confident. It would have made me, like, now I'm more confident, but at that point when I was in the beginning, I didn't understand so much, and I just needed like a starter course so that I could then learn how to learn, because it's all about knowing what you didn't know and learning that. So that is a starter course that I have. And that's on my website. And then the other thing that I'm super excited about is for people who are more in the 201, who are further into it, it's an accountability coaching program. And Ananda, my racial justice coach, is going to come in once a month for a 90-minute call with us. And then there's going to be accountability within that group. Because again, we can only do so much today. So we already talked about this. Okay, so this is where the work is at. When you're trying to figure out what to do, there's a lot to do. And when you're reading books, there's a lot of different books. So you start with the inner and the interpersonal work. And the reason it's in a circle, even though you start here, I want you to start here, please start here. But the reason it's in a circle is because you go around and around and around, and then you go here, and then you go there, and you go. So I didn't want it to make it linear. But we start with the inner and the interpersonal work. The inner being having a conversation with yourself. So when you're driving and you see someone and you have a bias, or there's a stereotype, or you think something, or you catch yourself saying, oh yeah, those black guys on the corner. And you were like, wait, is it relevant that they were black? So you start to notice. So this is the inner work of you noticing what comes up in your head and why you think what you think. Interpersonal work is within relationships. How you talk with your kids, how you interact with the people you work with in your community. That's the interpersonal work. That's really important because relationships mean a lot. And when you can have someone who will be like, hey, yeah, I've heard you say some racist things, and next time, you're saying that you want to work on it. Do you want me to call you in on it? Because maybe you don't notice it. Like, what kind of relationships can you get into where you can have a trusted, because we can't just do this by ourselves. Historical context, what I want you to write down for historical context is themes. So think about the theme of generational wealth and economical impact. So if you're reading about the case for reparations, for example, and like how slaves were taxed, like there's the historical context of how money, and it wasn't just that Black people built the United States. Like there's so much more to the historical context of how the economy was created off of slavery in general. Or the historical context of Native Americans and stealing land and real estate and how real estate plays into it. So where is racism within the food deserts or within food and access? And then obviously education and segregation. So not just history in general, but within the theme of where we can see systems of oppression playing out. Learning about historical context is super important because what we learned in high school and in everywhere else that we learned, it was all whitewashed. And when we start to really see what really happened, I know for me, I have felt mortified at how I was sold a story that I bought, and I've had to grieve that. So give yourself space to grieve what we've been fed, what kind of poison we've been fed. And then once we're doing the historical context work, then we move into systems of oppression. So then now after we understand some of history differently, we can see how the systems of oppression are operating in the government, in how people are like voter denial and whatever, all of the other things. Like there's so many different systems of oppression and institutionalized racism and structural racism, like in HR, just in the HR department of your workplace. Where do you see it? And then, I just said modern day context. So how do you see it showing up? So understanding systems of oppression is really seeing the system. And this is when, I'm going back, I'm sorry, I know I'm skipping around, but I'm not skipping, I'm right here still. This is when you put your work hat on, and when someone's talking about whiteness and white people and white women, they're not talking about you at all. They're not talking about you. They're talking about the system of white women and how white women were the ones that got Trump elected, because that is the system of it versus the personalized of it. So then how do you fit into that is different, but it's hard to take something personal when you're like, oh my God, yes, white women do suck sometimes. And as a white woman, for me to say that, it's because I'm taking my Sara hat off. I am a woman who happens to be white, because I can actually see how we have so much power, but we're taught not to see our power. And people of color see white women abusing power that they don't even know that they have. So it's just fucked up. And we have the ability to shift that perspective. So that's where then we get into modern day context. I'm not taking things personally, and I have my work hat on, and I'm scrolling through my Facebook, and I'm seeing stuff, and I'm at work, and I'm reading the policies differently. Or I'm at the restaurant, and my kids are like, wow, how come all of the wait staff is white women, and all of the guys in the kitchen are Latino men? That's modern day context. Okay, well, let's go back. Let's talk about that and see where it is today. That's using a racial lens. And the more, and it doesn't happen overnight, you're in it for the long haul. And then there's reimagining the future. So there's times when we want to just think about what it would be like if, and when we get into the reimagining the future, sometimes we get stuck in the practicality of modern day context. So a lot of what, especially with what we're doing right now and what you all are signing up with for this messy conversation, you're feeling really probably shitty and uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's imagine in 2 years from now, how you can talk about having hard conversations as fluidly as I am right now, or how you could go talk to your boss, or you could run shit differently. Like, who do you want to be in 2 years, and how is it going to take to get you there? And then like blow it up really big. Not that you would want to be talking like me in 2 years fluidly like this. I'm just using it as an example of like, how do you want to be within the work that you want to do? And maybe it's around LGBTQ rights. Maybe it's like whatever it is activism, as long, in my opinion, racism, like if we can focus on dismantling that, it actually lifts everything else up. So let me just remind you that I am married to a Mexican man and very, very deeply entrenched in the Latino community, and 100% Black Lives Matters, because when Black lives actually are respected and celebrated and honored, all lives are lifted up. And even though that can get tricky, it's like, that's how much I believe in that. How does this look for you in terms of where's the work? Can you kind of see how when you're picking out the books you're going to read or the podcasts you're going to listen to, where you can actually pick out where you would be within some of these? Because sometimes people get stuck in, I just like this, or I just like that, or like, I want to learn all about systems and historical context, but I don't really want to look at myself. Or I want to do all of the inner work. I'm a self-help junkie, and like, I want to just become a non-racist person, but they don't read anything about the historical context or understand it in that way. So that's just what I'm encouraging you to do in terms of where's the work.
Sarah, I'm going to jump in and share something from the chat box. You can either adjust it now or when it makes more sense, but I didn't want to lose it. And that is, can you share about how we can feel less overwhelmed in this? It is all I think about right now, and to the point it feels unmanageable.
Okay. Give yourself 2 months to just do the inner and interpersonal work. Or because a lot of it is, if you're just new to this, so when people say like you need to be doing something, if you're literally just educating yourself, you have to take the word just out, because like educating yourself in a way that you've never been educated before, that is so powerful. So I've even heard people say, look, you're just new to this, 6 months, don't talk to anyone about it. Just read and listen to podcasts, keep track of it, journal about it, write about it. Pick something that means something to you. If you pick a book that you can't get into, pick a different book. Like, find something that lights you up. I'm not reading the chats at all, Darcy. Is that helpful?
Yes. So there's just some conversation about, do you ever leave the inner and interpersonal work? Of course not, right? We're works in progress.
Yes. Sorry if I made that sound like that is something that you finished. Oh my God, no, because the more you learn, and then the more you get into like seeing it in modern day, and then you get bold and you're like, okay, I'm going to write a letter to this person and I'm going to suggest this. And then all of a sudden your inner and interpersonal work comes up, because now I'm feeling like I'm doing it wrong again. I literally feel like I'm doing it wrong all the time. And that's my inner work, like, is to challenge that. Is that how? I'm not reading the text. I'm not reading the chat again. Is that good? Are we good?
Yeah,
Yes, and kudos to the community here today who are also jumping in and supporting one another with the chat. So wonderful things that are being said.
There really are. Thank you. I would say that, yeah, there's some wonderful support here. So good.
Yay, beautiful people. I love all the people. Okay, it's 4:20. I want to be very cognizant of time. And just on that note, I am going to have, if people want to stay for an extra 15 minutes or even jump into another breakout, well, I don't think I can make that happen, but I'll linger for like 15 minutes if people want to stay. But if you have to get off at 4:30, like jump off and go. I should be done exactly at 4:30. Okay, so where are you at in the work? And then knowing that this circle is a circle, because again, it's not one and done, but you start with awareness, and then you go to analysis, Analysis is the reading and the writing and the learning and the asking questions and the exploring. And then you go into action. Also, by the way, some action items are within analysis, right? Like an action item could be to read more about something. Like that is an action. But action is typically outward. So that would be like having conversations or challenging something or bringing something up. There was a board meeting I was at. It's an all-white board meeting, and I don't know if I want to say the whole thing, so I'm gonna like change it a little bit. But I had my racial justice lens on, so when a topic was brought up, I said, "Hey, well, what about this?" So that would be an action item, is to bring things to the surface as much as possible, or to protest, or to donate money. Which again, if you get value from this today, then I'm going to encourage you all to donate money somewhere. And then donating money, like, okay, we can go to analysis about donating money. I just started learning about mutual aid versus charity. So like where I used to donate money to, I'm not going to say what huge organization, I'm now donating money to a smaller Black-led organization because I've done a different analysis. Accountability. This is where I have strong feelings about a lot of things, but accountability is so important. So if you have an accountability partner or a group, or, I mean, we all know it works. So when you say, yes, I'm going to do XYZ within the next month. Yes, I'm going to have a challenging conversation. Yes, I'm going to read this book, or, I mean, that's why book clubs work, right? So having accountability and to have it be in a trusted relationship with someone who can actually say, because I've had people when I start to do that feeling like, I don't think what I'm doing matters. I don't think it's making a difference. And, oh my gosh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, that's not helpful all the time. Like you don't, like that's the difference between having someone challenge you versus being coddled. All right, and then you're back at awareness again. So some people get stuck in the social media stuff around, okay, well, you could be learning a lot and you could be creating awareness and you could be preaching to the choir. So again, that's you making your own decision about what you think works and what you think isn't working, and using critical thinking, because the whole thing is you might do something for 6 months and then be like, you know what, I don't think this, like, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So just be willing to shift and change and learn. So like where I was doing one thing and I was like, ooh, that doesn't resonate anymore. You want an example? Well, yeah, like I guess where I was donating money is a good example too.
All right, Sarah, I'm going to jump in here with one for you. And that is it possible to be bothered by the issue of defunding the police and still be an ally? I'm told to just go along with what Black people want. What to do? Police in schools? Yikes. What if I believe that that is the best thing? Am I a bad ally if I don't agree?
I don't do bad and good, right? I think what is helpful is it's not that you have to get into agreement, but is it possible to listen and learn differently? So like if my gut reaction is like, I cannot imagine no cops in schools because of whatever reason, why is it so important? Why is this issue so important to the Black community? So what I would do is not necessarily to be convinced, not to look for a need to agree or not agree, but to look for why it's important and then learn from that. I think allyship is in the process of learning and listening. So like, if I'm gonna be as bold to be like, you're a good ally or bad ally, which I don't like saying, but like to just be like, I agree, that sounds to me like I agree to disagree. Whereas what I am seeking is understanding, because I was sold a story about why cops should be in school. And someone's telling me that maybe it's possible that cops shouldn't be in school, but I don't understand. I don't understand where that comes from. And so maybe just don't disagree yet. Maybe just listen, or disagree until you've listened more. I would say if you want to be a good ally, you just listen more, but with an open mind. Yes, that's what I would say. I don't know. and to be uncomfortable with it. And to not imagine. I cannot imagine some of the things that I'm agreeing with. You know that? I can't imagine it. But I also feel safe. And I don't know what it's like not to feel safe every day, literally in my own freaking house. And I used to always be like, oh, isn't it great to feel safe? Like, I feel so safe. Yeah, okay. We're here to learn and listen. So that, what are we missing? Where are we at? We're at 4:25. We're so good with time. This is what I want to remind you of what we covered. We covered the unique position of being a white woman. Learning about feminism differently is awesome. We covered a little bit about what stops us from doing the work. And understanding what the work is and having some context with it. So I was hoping that that would make it feel less overwhelming, and I think it made it feel more overwhelming. So I'm super sorry about that. Okay, so one of the things that you can do with the accountability and like how to feel not overwhelmed is if you do, this might not work for everyone, but like if you're a calendar person, if you can put it on your calendar, I don't know, either once a day where you have a reminder, or if you want to do 3 times a week and it's an hour on Monday nights or something where you're like either going to read, it's like meal planning. You're either going to read a book or you're going to watch a movie, and maybe you plan it out on Sunday of like, what does my racial justice education look like this week, and how am I going to get it on my calendar? And maybe it's a monthly thing. Like, I'm not saying like, because I want you in this for the long game, and it's sustainability. So like, how do you get it to be where you can consistently, constantly be learning? And if it's on your calendar, also this eliminates the guilt thing, because then when you're like, I'm not doing enough, okay, it's on my calendar. I know it's there. I know I will do it. And then the more you do it, it will snowball. So just be patient with yourself as you learn about the process. I really just, oh, wow. What are those red things? Like someone's drawing on it. All right, I'm gonna not share this anymore because I think I'm done, and we can do some questions. Oh, what's next? Oh yeah, so Darcy's gonna throw a Google form, really 2 quick questions, like 2 takeaways from today, if you could write them down, and then if you could also write down who your accountability person is. I don't need to know their name, but like, I want you to literally do this for yourself to think about, is it a friend, a neighbor, like think about someone that, and if you don't have someone, then your job is to, everyone wants to talk about defunding the police. Yes, I would love to talk about that too. I'm learning so much, my brain is exploding. Oh my gosh. I love having exploding brains. Okay, so like, be like, all right, in the next 2 weeks, put it on your calendar. I will have found a accountability partner. So if you don't have one, then promise that you will find one. Donate money. There's a lot of different ways to donate money and learn about donating money. Get the work on your calendar, do the 10-person conversation challenge, commit to it, write it down, tell your accountability person you did it, use your resources toolbox. Actually, don't use it, create it. Like, your job is literally to create your own toolbox. So we're aware of discomfort. Yep, that's cool. We're all uncomfortable. Oh, we were going to talk about that one article I sent you, but we're at 4:29. So I just want y'all to know how much I am grateful that you showed up. And I do believe that change will happen. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen anytime super soon, but like, look at all of you here wanting to learn. Like, we can do this because we are strong people. And now there's going to be like a love fest. Thank you, everyone. We're not alone. We've all felt the shitty feelings. Yeah. And we all know that we need to move through them. So y'all can find me on Facebook, whatever. You can find each other probably on my Facebook too. Whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to hang out for a little bit. And y'all can go your merry ways. Keep being amazing. I'm going to turn a little bit of music on.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
How do you do that?
It was impressive what we could do in 90 minutes. You are right. Do you want to come up here? Thank you, Darcy, for helping again.
No problem. We had a few people who were not able to access the documents in the chat box, so I have their email addresses and I'm just gonna email them out.
Cool, you're the best.
It might be cool, Sarah, if you just emailed them to everyone, regardless, just in a follow-up.
Okay.
And
You
your
know, I
form
think
too.
60% of the people didn't get the Zoom link either, like, because it says how many people could open it. Technology is funky.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darcy, I just messaged you privately about my email address. I hope you got it.
I'm
Megan.
sure I did.
I can also email it out afterwards. It'll go to everyone, but that's okay.
All right, perfect. Do you want to just do that, Sarah?
I will do that, Darcy. Don't worry
Okay,
about it.
great.
Thank you for your time, ladies.
Thank you for showing up.
Bye.
Does anyone want to talk about anything? Like we could do a quick, not quick, but like a 10-minute talk about whatever you want to talk about. Terry Jo?
I just want to say thank you so much for this. I asked in the chat box and you kind of addressed it, but I am feeling really overwhelmed. I feel for some reason this has just hit me in a lot of ways. I feel when I was a child, I felt this very strong, but then it was so easy to go back into comfort and not doing anything about it. And so the movement is so big, and there's a part of me that's very excited about that. But I'm having just a really hard time managing my energy. Like, it's all I think about. I'm in knots. I'm clenched in my jaw. I have all these, I must have 30 things up on my browser, articles and videos. And I'm just like I feel really just overwhelmed. And then the bigger thing also is I'm aware that I'm avoiding my family because my family is so entrenched in the other narrative and seems to, a lot of them show no interest in learning. And so then I'm feeling alone because it's like, I'm really feeling this choice to pull. Do I want to follow my heart or stay in the old system, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe addressing that.
You can be in both.
Mhm.
You will follow your heart because your heart is calling that loudly. So you will follow your heart, and you can still be in beautiful relationships with your family. So like, it's not mutually exclusive. It just means that you might not choose to be in conversation with them about it. Like, it just might be something you don't talk to them about. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad ally. It's not your place necessarily. They might have a coworker, like someone else, like they have their own journey, right? So like, white saviorism comes into play here, not because we want to save Black people, but because we think we can save white people too. So it's about saving yourself. And if you can figure out how to take care of yourself in a way so that you can do the work, not out of obligation, but because you know it's what your heart wants you to do. And then you might be able to sleep better at night. But taking care of yourself is crucial. Otherwise, you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you'll burn out.
I think the challenge I'm having is I'm being very vocal on Facebook and my family is on there. So that's what I'm having a hard time with because I feel very called to speak up. But then when I go to their house for dinner, I'm aware that they've all seen what I've posted and nobody's talking about it. And then there's passive aggressive meanness that comes toward me.
Okay.
And I'm really having a hard time.
I would challenge you to call each of them individually and say, hey, you've seen what I've been doing on Facebook. I know you don't agree. Would it make more sense for me to like, should I block? Like, should I have, like, what should I do? Because I want to be in relationship with you and I want to speak my mind. And I, like, how do we do this?
Okay.
Because I don't need to be in the conversation and I'm not going to, like, they're probably scared that you're shaming them.
Yeah.
Or that you think that you are better than them.
I am doing that.
Right. So they're picking that up and
Yeah.
then it's weird. So if you can name it and then be like, I want to have a really amazing relationship with you. How does that look? What do we do? Does that resonate?
Thank you. It's hard. I'm scared. But
Right.
That does resonate.
Like, I want to be me and I want to be in relationship with you and I don't want those, like,
Yeah.
That is scary because, and then I hate to do this, but for me, the perspective is, what's the alternative? You know, like, first of all, I do think that you're like hurting yourself when you don't get to be who you want to be and speak out the way you want to speak. Like that hurts your soul and your spirit and everything else. And then it's also detrimental to Black lives, right? Like if we're looking at the whole big picture, like if we know that this is like harmful, like, and we can have a place in it, how do we manage the perspective?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Sarah,
yeah.
Doesn't that also open up the space if Terry Jo were to able to reach out individually, that she might find that that's not the narrative? Maybe there's some people who are saying, why are you posting that? Like maybe it will open up a conversation, because like there is the assumption. I know when I first started posting things, I thought people were having all these things in their head and they were disagreeing with me and they were secretly like, she's gone, you know, all lefty again. But I started to realize that a lot of people that wasn't actually a conversation that was happening in their head. And then people were coming to me and saying things that out of mouths that I never expected, saying, what was that thing you posted? Like, so I think we also kind of have to assume it's not always negative.
Yeah.
I mean, you know your family, but I'm just,
And we do the worst case scenario too. Like, what if we imagine the best case scenario? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have time. I have a couple of questions, and I don't know if this is maybe something I need to take to an accountability group or whatever. It's probably deeper work, but what have you. I think the two things that are holding me back right now are a lot of sort of like self-centered fear about living in like a fascist police state and being hesitant to like post online and stuff like that out of fear of that, which I know is nothing compared to, you know, what Black and brown people are already facing all the time. But that's just like a struggle that I'm having of like, will this come back to, you know, will I be put on a list or, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so you're concerned about your own safety, which isn't, everyone deserves to feel safe. So like we shouldn't have to feel not safe to feel in solidarity with. Like that is not helpful. Like you want everyone should feel safe. So to do something, the question is, how do you grapple with doing something that might make you feel unsafe?
Yeah, that's one. And then my other thing, can I say two?
Can I finish that one quick? Sure. It might be that that's not really what will make a change anyway. There's a lot of other ways to do work and to make change. And so if what it is, like posting on social media, puts you in a place where you don't feel like you're safe, then do something else. There's so many things to do. Like, I mean, literally there's so many things that are not vocal, like looking at within your, wherever you work and like doing a deep analysis of the system. I don't know where you work, but like there's so many other things.
And then my other one was just like struggling with a lot of sort of imposter syndrome of like, I guess it goes back to the all or nothing thing, you know, because I feel like as long as I'm going to benefit from not just like ancestral decisions that were made, but like personal decisions, it's like, I feel like if I'm not going to refund all the generational wealth and stuff like that, I feel like an imposter. You know what I mean?
Like you're not doing, like it'll never be enough?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
Okay.
You know, like we do the best we can, but, and I actually then question, where does that come from? This, are we enough? Like, then I have to look at this whole spiritual level of like, why do I have to do to be enough? Or, so for me, that goes into like the deep spiritual work of questioning why society has us always thinking we're not enough. Like we're never enough. And I don't know, I think men grapple with that too, right? They do, like everyone grapples with that. So I think that's a society thing. What if it's enough for today? What if it's enough for today? I mean, really, we could all die tomorrow anyway.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing to that, Sarah?
Please, Darcy. I
yeah.
know the answers to all this.
Okay, so that is, it's about the binary, right? Binaries are lies. We have to get away from, it's an either or. Either I'm doing enough or I'm not doing enough. And Elena Aguilar, who is a mentor and a friend, and I appreciate her so much, she talks about the power of and said, you can do better, and you are doing the best that you can in this moment right now. I am good enough, and I can improve.
Yes.
So it's breaking away from that binary of it's either or. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm right, I'm wrong. I'm enough or I'm not enough. And it's hard. Our entire society is created on a binary. But trying to get away from that is powerful. It's been a powerful shift in my work to try to think in and instead of or.
Thank you, Darcy. Anyone else can jump in too. What, Megan, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, like, another thing that I struggle with is, like, I have to unlearn so much of, like, superiority and not giving people of color enough credit for their intelligence, because I have this idea that I'll be, like, found out as, you know, still being racist or still benefiting from racism, and I can give people of color enough credit to realize that they already know that, you know? Like, I'm sure they would not be surprised.
Right. Yeah. So basically, it's it's you acknowledging that, which is way ahead of the game too. If you think about it, a lot of people won't even acknowledge that. And when you start, like, there's two ways. Once you acknowledge it, then you reframe it. And so it becomes a practice, but you can't reframe something and change something until you have acknowledged it and untangled it, right?
Yep. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. You brought it all in, Megan.
Can I share something, Sarah?
Yes.
That might be helpful. Just as Terry Jo has talked about overwhelm, I can definitely relate to that, especially this week. And then I have the, inner dialogue of like, but this is nothing compared to what Black people are going through. But I do, there's also like the go inward to help things too. And I found it really helpful to like I know not everyone gets to do this, but to take a nap and like meditate and actually take a break from the screens, like I kept kind of like going so hard on my phone that I would end up with a migraine, without realizing that I had kind of gone that far into it. And my intentions are good, but like Sarah was saying, right? It's not helping anyone to go to like this intense place of overwhelm, but also like give ourselves a break that we go to the intense place of overwhelm. Like, this is new to a lot of us, right? So I just hope that might be helpful, because I can say like, letting myself rest and giving my eyes a break, allowed me to then come back and like with fresh eyes, read what people were sharing and then share that stuff instead of being at this like, like fevered pace.
Yeah. And that happened to me today because I am on very little sleep and I'm really, and I'm just started my period and I'm like, I'm at that point. And so I saw a conversation and I was about to get snarky and I was about to like push someone away, and I knew that I was about to do it. And so it's like, in that moment, what's more important for me, to keep doing more to the point where I'm now like not helpful to the movement, or should I go take a fucking nap or take the day off so that I can be helpful? Because that is the white supremacy of thinking we can do so well if we just keep doing more. And the more we do, the better we are, and therefore we are amazing and we know how to fix everything. Like, no.
Yeah.
Pleasure Activism. That is the book by Adrienne Marie Brown.
Well, I think what you just spoke to also, Sarah, is the importance of starting from groundedness.
Yeah.
And when we feel ourselves derailing, that's our cue to seek that stillness. And that doesn't make what we're wanting to do, there's no judgment about that. It's just a reminder to come back to center.
We judge ourselves very harshly.
I feel like I might have taken away from your book share. Could you hold that up again?
It's a revolution to feel good. It's amazing. We should have sex more, apparently.
Oh, that's cute.
Paula, how do I know you?
Group 18 at the Nehemiah.
Yes, you're my facilitator. That's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, beautiful people, it's 4:45. I love you all. Keep being
Thank
amazing.
you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
everyone.
Carry
Thank
on,
you.
all of you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Sarah and Darcy and Casey.
Thank you. So
Bye,
beautiful.
Kimberly.